Hi, it's June 4th. My name is Sharon, and I'm reading from the New Bedford Light. First article, City withholds records on $2 million grant. The New Bedford Research and Robotics Renovation Project had a high risk of failure, an internal city report shows. But the city awarded it $2 million, and in response to a public records request, it has declined to release memos detailing the high-risk grant. Article by Grace Ferguson. Local leaders surrounded a mechanical arm as it cut the ribbon on New Bedford Research and Robotics' new building last July. The ceremony kicked off the renovation of a vacant property on Purchase Street using $2.25 million in federal pandemic relief funds granted by the city. The grant took months to finalize. It needed, quote, all manner of legal opinions, end quote, to fit into the complicated funding requirements, Mayor John Mitchell said at the ribbon cutting. This represents a big bet of public funds, Mitchell said. I am fully confident that it is a really good bet that will pay off handsomely for the city in the long run, end quote. This bet was risky, according to an internal city report obtained by The Light. A 6-page assessment completed in early 2023 said the New Bedford Research and Robotics Renovation Project had a high risk of failing to meet its goals or compliance requirements. But so far, the city has kept other reports evaluating the grant's risks a secret. City staff, lawyers, and a consultant exchanged 6 memos about the project's risk over the next year and a half, but the city has refused to release them to The Light. It claims all 6 documents can be kept secret under exemptions in the state public records law for attorney-client privilege and attorney work product. The Light has been seeking public records about the $2.25 million grant since November, and it has been asking the city to release the memo since February. The city has claimed that some of the memos, written by a city consultant and staffer, sought legal advice from the city's lawyers on the grant, and that the other memos included the lawyers' legal opinions on the grant. Government entities may assert the attorney-client privilege despite the tension with the principle of government transparency embodied by the Massachusetts Public Records Law, Associate City Solicitor Catherine Shuko wrote in a response to The Light in May. Public Information Officer Jonathan Darling declined to explain why the Mitchell administration chose to invoke this privilege. He provided a written statement in response to The Light's questions about the grant last week. Darling's statement said that the city took steps to minimize any risk associated with the grant, guided by legal counsel. It said the city is monitoring the work and paying contractors directly rather than having the money pass through the nonprofit's account. The applicant also has deep local roots and has successfully built a robotics program affiliated with the Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, which he wants to replicate here, Darling wrote. The applicant is the nonprofit New Bedford Research and Robotics. Mark Parsons, its founder and executive director, said he didn't know that the city has determined that the grant was risky. I haven't been privy to any of this, he said in an April interview with The Light. Nobody sent me a risk assessment or a memo or anything, end quote. But Parsons said the content of the memos was irrelevant to him. I'm not going to get sidetracked by so and so said such and such, he said. Instead, he said he'd focused on the renovation project, which is still in its early stages, and his nonprofit's work. This is one of 3 pandemic relief grants that the city awarded despite assessments by the city's grant auditors that the projects were high risk. The city also awarded $500,000 in pandemic funds to the renovation of Holy Family High School into apartments, then later determined that the Holy Family grant was high risk. And the city gave $110,000 in pandemic relief funds to the William H. Carney Lodge renovation in December, after a reviewer's warning that the lodge cannot be entrusted to manage federal funds, The Light reported in April. The city said it mitigated risks on the lodge renovation by paying vendors directly and inspecting the work. The Carney Lodge grant was one of 6 pandemic relief grants the city awarded outside of a competitive application process, the Light has learned. Robotics nonprofit leader reacts to city findings. A 6-page risk assessment of the New Bedford Research and Robotics Project is the only document the Light has obtained from the city that explains why auditors found that the grant to New Bedford Research and Robotics, or NBRR, was high risk. Parsons founded NBRR as a nonprofit in 2021. He had just returned to the South Coast where he grew up after leading a similar program at the Pratt Institute in New York City. NBRR runs robotics education programs for local students, conducts research for universities and private companies, and provides incubation space for small businesses. Philanthropic grants fund some of NBRR's programs. The nonprofit charges for some of its services. Parsons said small businesses pay to the members of its incubation program, and companies pay the nonprofit for research and development contracts. The nonprofit is using this pandemic relief grant to renovate the former Glacier Glass building at 1265 Purchase Street while working in the currently usable parts of the property. Mass Development, the state's economic development authority, pitched in another $900,000 toward the project. Plans submitted with NBRR's grant application show the grubby industrial garage space transformed into a bright, futuristic innovation hub complete with robot arms. Most of NBRR's pandemic grant is still unspent because the renovation is far from finished. The project team is currently working to stabilize the building, which deteriorated while it was vacant. Rising construction costs and unexpected problems with the building have drastically increased the project budget, Parsons said. Parsons works in a small, dated office on the north side of the property. His head nearly touches the ceiling tiles while he stands. All the robots are out of sight in an unglamorous warehouse building toward the back of the lot. The main building that's visible from Purchase Street looks clean, bright, and buzzy in architectural renderings. Parsons said he wants to have big windows in front so the work being done there spills out into the neighborhood. When he took a Light reporter and photographer on a tour of the space in April, it felt chilly and a little damp. Leaks in the ceiling had stained the walls. A couple of construction workers were boarding up the garage doors. The project is far behind its original schedule in its grant application. NBRR aimed to finish the work by summer 2023. Another project schedule that was included in risk assessment documents targeted June 2024. The risk assessment and pre-grant process dragged on so long that the grant wasn't even officially awarded until late April 2024, more than a year after the risk score was filed. Unanticipated work, like a stormwater runoff study required to replace the building's roof, has also slowed the renovation. The 2023 risk assessment came up with a score based mainly on the organization's history, financial picture, and management structure. The higher the score, the higher the risk. NBRR's grant received 39 out of a possible 48 points. 2 grants went to public entities, a $3 million vacant property initiative managed by the New Bedford Redevelopment Authority, and a $1.5 million reconstruction of Leonard's Wharf by the New Bedford Port Authority. The other non-competitive grants that went to private entities totaled about $1.8 million. They included $1.5 million for a YMCA renovation and expansion, $250,000 for an offshore wind workforce development center at Bristol Community College, and $40,000 for an indoor farmers market run by Coastal Food Shed. The grants came out of an $82 million funding package the city received from 2021 American Rescue Plan Act. New Bedford set itself apart from other cities by focusing on big construction projects rather than short-term programs. The money helped to build new housing, renovate local nonprofit spaces, and improve city infrastructure. The city met a deadline on December 31st last year to finalize its spending plans. Any money not spent by the end of 2026 must be returned to the federal government. Star Store will become a downtown hot hub once again. A Boston nonprofit has purchased the former University Arts Center for $1, ending a long dispute over the building. Article by Colin Hogan. The once shuttered doors of the Star Store opened to the public on Monday morning for the first time since the College of Visual and Performing Arts abandoned the building in August 2023. The nonprofit Arts and Business Council of Greater Boston has purchased the former UMass Dartmouth Arts Center and one-time department store and announced plans to redevelop the building into a downtown arts hub. Walking into the building for the first time in almost 2 years, the student-turned-advocate Fallon Navarro said she was overcome with both painful memories and hopeful excitement. The last time we were here, we were kicked out, Navarro said. Another former Star Store student, Anis Begjade, said, "We're getting back our home." Our hands were shaking from emotion, Begjade said, and she raised them to show the tremors. The 50 people who gathered to hear the announcement, including artists, politicians, small business owners, and other community members. Matt MacArthur, a consultant with the Arts and Business Council of Greater Boston, told attendees that the world-class talent deserves world-class resources. We are going to turn this building into a nationally recognized example of artistic development and community collaboration, MacArthur said. The Arts and Business Council of Greater Boston, A&BC, as it was referred to during the announcement, has a track record of investing into artistic and cultural hubs, including the Western Avenue Studios in Lowell, a former mill building that became a home for more than 250 studios, 50 live and work lofts, a theater, and a brewery, according to the A&BC's website. MacArthur estimated that renovations, including to the roof, facade, mechanical systems, and elevator, could take around 18 months, but the full scope of the renovations will depend on community feedback. A&BC plans to gather community input on what new spaces and services the building should contain. The announced website, starstorenb.org, was active as of this article's publication. A&BC, which bought the building for $1, will take responsibility for fundraising for the Star Store's rebirth, MacArthur said. Our creativity is stacking various sources of capital, end quote, for the Lowell project that included private investors and loans. They are a perfect fit for this project, said Mayor John Mitchell. He anticipated that first-floor retail performance spaces and specialized studios would all be part of the new Star Store, enhancing the arts corridor here on Purchase Street, in proximity to the new Zeiterion in downtown. The drawn-out political fallout of the Star Store's closure also reared its head. Mitchell said the city tried for a while to get the state to reverse the university's decision to leave the Star Store campus. He also said the city also looked into what it would take to develop the building into housing or offices, but that the infrastructure didn't accommodate those solutions. I know it's painful for a lot of people here, Mitchell said. He added, it doesn't matter if it was someone else's fault, it is our responsibility to fix it. The deal that made the new Star Store possible. The building's previous owner, the real estate developer, Paul Downey, was not present at Monday morning's announcement. It was only late Thursday that the complex deal to sell the building was finalized among Downey, the city, and new A&BC. Tony Sapienza, board chair for the New Bedford Economic Development Council, said it took a year for everything to come together, and several agreements needed to be researched among multiple parties. Your strong local journalism starts with you. In October, the city filed to foreclose on the Star Store in state land court, pursuing Downey for hundreds of thousands of dollars in back tax payments that he claimed he owed, the Light reported. Last week, a municipal lien certificate filed with the Registry of Deeds stated that Downey's company had been billed $806,768 in taxes for 2023 to 2025, received $396,617 in abatements, exemptions, and resolved the debt with payment credits of $406,702. The city moved to withdraw the land court case last week. Mitchell said that Downey delivered a check to the assessor's office to pay approximately $500,000. This amount represents a settlement agreement between the city and Downey that will avoid a lengthy adjudication process in court, Mitchell said. In return for this settlement, Downey agreed to sell the building to A and BC for $1, which Sapienza said was keeping his pledge to donate the building to the city. As of Thursday, the city's agreement with Downey sale to A and B and C, and a partnership agreement between A, NBC, and the Economic Development Council were all finalized. For a lot of investors from Boston, New Bedford is seen as a place far afield, said Mitchell during his remarks. But he told A and BC representatives this is going to be the best investment your nonprofit has ever made. The prevailing attitude among those in attendance on Monday morning was excitement for the Star Store's return. Bubbling underneath that, however, were the strains of skepticism and regional pride that have marked the Star Store saga. I'm fascinated by this because the Boston group is interested in New Bedford, said Kat Knudsen, a local artist and art commentator. What's that relationship going to look like? Ethan Diagia, a founder of the New Bedford Film Festival, said he hopes the new Star Store is for artists and by artists, rather than run by an organization that doesn't care as much. He said he's approaching the partnership with A and BC with cautious optimism, but he said that faith in large institutions is what led to the Star Store's demise. We shouldn't repeat the mistakes of the past, end quote. State Senator Mark Montigny expressed his hesitations with the deal, though he had no hand in making it. While this transfer is an encouraging step forward, I'm writing to you as the original legislative sponsor of this arts campus to express caution, Montigny wrote in a letter to the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, which needed to formally approve the tax deal that precipitated the Star Store sale. I urge your department to carefully scrutinize the current arrangement to ensure taxpayers and the Commonwealth are protected, Montigny wrote. While the artists and politicians alike noted their hesitations, the overall mood could not be dampened. Navarro, the former Star Store student who orchestrated much of the activism around the Star Store, said that she had been in touch with A and BC when the campus first closed. She said she was excited that it was willing to take on the project. And for the first time in years, Navarro was back in the building she had so long worked to restore to the artists of New Bedford. For those efforts, Navarro received an unexpected shout-out from the mayor during his remarks. What you did was fantastic for a lot of the students who were effectively kicked out of here, Mitchell said. I want to thank you for your advocacy. It really did make a difference. Opinion. Mattapoisett Select Board needs to expand. The Select Board should honor the town's meeting's majority vote. More importantly, this situation perfectly illustrates why we need 5 members making these decisions rather than just 3. Mattapoisett resident Jean Hopkins. The May 27 Select Board meeting perfectly illustrated why Mattapoisett needs to expand from 3 to 5 Select Board members, exactly what the town meeting voted to support on May 12th. Our current 3-member structure now presents critical problems in full display. With only 3 members, just 2 individuals can make significant decisions. This concentration of power becomes problematic when those same individuals question a democratic vote simply because some residents left afterward, a phenomenon that has occurred at previous controversial votes without any questioning those results. Our Select Board members maintain full-time jobs while serving, which limits their capacity to grow the town's priorities. A 5-member board would distribute responsibilities more effectively, preventing the delays we're witnessing with this home rule petition. Massachusetts open meeting law prohibits a quorum from discussing business outside meetings. With 3 members, no 2 can collaborate between meetings. 5 members would allow 2 to work together on solutions, clearly needed given the current board's handling of town meeting directives. When conflicts necessitate recusals, our 3-member board becomes a 2-member voting body, potentially creating deadlocks. We're seeing similar dysfunction as the board questions whether to follow town meeting's clear directive, despite one member previously stating he would, quote, support the will of the citizens at town meeting, end quote. At least 36 Massachusetts towns have successfully expanded their select boards. This isn't experiential, it's proven governance improvement. The current Select Board's reluctance to move forward with the legislative petition suggests a troubling disconnect from democratic principles. Our community deserves governance that reflects our diversity and addresses our needs efficiently. The Select Board should honor the town meeting's majority vote. More importantly, this situation perfectly illustrates why we need 5 members making these decisions rather than just 3. Jean Hopkins is a Mattapoisett resident. Immigration. ICE impact still felt in New Bedford. Several New Bedford immigrants, mostly Guatemalans, have been deported, pleaded guilty to re-entry, or released on bail. Article by Kevin G. Andrade. New Bedford continues to feel the effects of immigration and customs enforcement operations that have so far detained at least 28 men, mostly from Guatemala, in the city since the inauguration of President Donald Trump. The Light has been unable to confirm whether any resident was arrested in an Operation Tuesday, where agents detained 40 immigrants on Martha's Vineyard Inn in Nantucket. That operation came as ICE and Homeland Security investigations face a leadership shakeup and an administration announcement of a 3,000 daily national immigration arrest goal as part of the president's mass deportation campaign. Nevertheless, legal processes in several cases have been carried out, resulting in some deportations and some releases involving New Bedford immigrants. Guilty plea in U.S. District Court. Mario Lopez Sajvin, a Guatemalan immigrant, pleaded guilty in the U.S. District Court, Massachusetts, in Boston Wednesday to illegal re-entry, according to the U.S. Department of Justice. According to the DOJ, Sajvin was deported on December 8, 2010, following an assault and battery conviction in Prince George's County, Maryland, earlier that year. The press release said that the charge stemmed from an incident with his roommate earlier that year. The Prince George's County District Court Clerk Office did not respond to a Light request for the records. A review of records at New Bedford District Court found charges of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, issued respectively on March 30 and September 8, 2009. The first charge was dismissed upon recommendation of the Probation Department, and the second due to failure to prosecute. According to the complaint filed in the U.S. District Court, Sajvin was turned away twice after attempting to re-enter the country near Santa Teresa, New Mexico, in December 2022. It remains unclear when he re-entered the U.S. On November 25, 2023, Westport police arrested Sajvin on an open warrant, though it remains unclear on what charge. In the complaint, the Department of Homeland Security said police did not hold him despite an ICE request. The Light has filed a public records request with the Westport Police Department for the arrest report. On March 3rd, 2024, New Bedford police charged Sajvin with unlicensed operation of a motor vehicle, possession of an open container of alcohol in a motor vehicle, and lewdness, open, and gross misconduct. Sajvin admitted to sufficient facts on the unlicensed operation and lewdness charges and was sentenced to administrative supervision on August 6, 2024, with a new appearance date set for August 5, 2025. Sajvin was found not responsible for the open container charge. On December 29, 2024, New Bedford police charged Sajvin with negligent operation of a motor vehicle, improper operation of a motor vehicle, operating under the influence of alcohol, leaving the scene of property damage, and a marked lanes violation. That case remains open, with a warrant issued for his arrest on May 8th, more than a month after his entry into ICE detention. Authorities detained Sajvin, 35, and his roommates, Oswaldo Vicente Savin, 24, and Julio Amilcar Chiquin Tux, 27, at their Sawyer Street apartment on March 22nd as part of an enhanced enforcement operation across the Commonwealth at the time. A review by the New Bedford District Court Clerk's Office found no criminal charges filed against either of the other 2 men in Massachusetts. According to the U.S. District Court records, Mario Lopez Sajwan was assigned an attorney and waived his rights to the reading of the indictment, a preliminary hearing, and a detention hearing. He agreed to plead in an agreement acknowledging the potential immigration consequences of his plea. The DOJ said he faces a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison, 3 years supervised release, and a $250,000 fine. According to the plea agreement, Sajvan is likely to face 24 months probation and a mandatory $100 fine with little or no prison time. Sajvan's sentencing is set for July 10th at the Joseph E. Moakley Courthouse in Boston. One man released with ankle monitor. A man who entered the U.S. 3 years ago as an unaccompanied minor was released from ICE custody Tuesday, according to his lawyer. Andine Galvez Sniffen said authorities released Mario Estuardo Tocos, 20, on Tuesday, about 3 weeks after attorneys filed a petition for a writ of habeas corpus on his behalf at U.S. District Court, Massachusetts. Sniffen said Immigration Judge Donald Ostrom of the Chelmsford Immigration Court ordered his release on bail without a GPS monitor, but the ICE released him with one anyway. She said she intends to go to court and ask the judge to put an order to remove monitoring in writing. They put a GPS monitor on him from their point of view. It's pretty standard, she said. Now we're going to have to file the bond motion to have that taken off. According to documents obtained by the Light after their filing in U.S. District Court, Tocos was in a van when federal authorities stopped the vehicle looking for someone else on May 7th. Tocos, the target. The two others were detained as part of the operation. Lawyers for Tocos claimed that the habeas corpus petition that he was arrested without justification. Tocos entered the U.S. in 2022 at the age of 17, according to documents obtained by the Light after filing in U.S. District Court. As an unaccompanied minor, he could not be held in immigration detention under current statute and instead was released into the custody of the Office of Refugee Resettlement. Soon after, he was handed over to the custody of his brother, Silverio Tocos. Multiple New Bedford men have been deported. At least 3 men detained in New Bedford since January by federal authorities in immigration enforcement operations are now confirmed out of the country. The men include Manuel Ordóñez Socop and Jose Antonio Garcia, 39, both arrested in a raid on their Vile Street home in the city's South End on March 21. Leticia, 19, a cousin of Socop's, who lived with the pair, confirmed the 2 men were both deported. According to 2 minors and 1 young adult present for the raid, agents dressed in military fatigues used a battering ram to enter their home without permission and did not show a warrant seeking either Garcia or Socop. The youth said that agents pointed guns at them during the operation and only released them after they proved legal presence in the U.S. We're still looking through what happened, Leticia told the Light Wednesday in Spanish. As of Friday, a search through the ICE detainer locator found no results for Socop, though a Guatemalan named Jose Garcia was located at the Wynn Correctional Center in Winfield, Louisiana, a common holding site for deportees just before their flights to Guatemala. In a separate case, the wife of Juan Ramon Alegria Rodas, 43, confirmed to the Light that he was deported to Guatemala on May 19th. Rodas had been living in the U.S. for 30 years when agents arrested him outside the home of his wife, Patricia, in the north end of the city on May 5th, as he prepared to drive to New Bedford High School to pick up his daughter from school. When asked for further comment, Patricia said she had nothing to add at the moment. It's not a good moment now, she said in Spanish. My children are very sad. Rui Moras. A review of the ICE detainee locator found that Rui Moras, a Portuguese green card holder who has lived in New Bedford since he was 2, is no longer listed in the database, an indicator that he is no longer in agency custody. Helena de Silva Hughes, president of the Immigrant Assistance Center, said its significance is unclear. It means one of 2 things, she said. Either he's out on bail or they deported him. Rumors recently spread that authorities released Muras ICE took Miras into custody after Customs and Border Protection stopped him at Boston Logan International Airport as he returned from a trip to Mexico with his girlfriend. The detainment was due to a 2013 drug charge that had been dismissed by the courts. Portugal's embassy in the U.S. said it's following Miras's case and is in touch with the U.S. government on the matter. We will continue to respect the wishes of the family to not speak publicly on the matter. This is Sharon, June 4th. I have read from New Bedford Light. Hope you have a great day.